Welcome to the Craft of Coaching podcast, where we dive into what it truly takes to become a skilled, confident life coach. I'm your host, Kate, head of the CLCC, or Certified Life Coach Collective, an ICF-Accredited Level 1 coach training program. We combine courage, coaching, and community to offer you more than just a training program, but a life-changing experience where you use your own personal transformation as the learning ground for supporting your clients. On this podcast, we explore how you can use coaching skills to support your clients or expand your own growth, all grounded in evidence-based coaching practices. Learn more about our program and get free resources for becoming a life coach at teamclcc.com. And now, here's today's episode. Today's episode is going to be craft of coaching adjacent. We're going to get into marketing and specifically how you can be authentic in your marketing. And a lot of people feel like when they get into coaching, they love the craft of coaching. They love being a coach. They love the coaching high. We all do. And then they get into trying to market themselves. And that is where they go, this is not what I expected. This is not what I anticipated. And I get it. I went through that as well. And that is part of why, as Director of Training for the Courageous Living Coach Certification, I think it is so important to include marketing. The other reason why I think it is so important to include marketing training in our organization is, quite frankly, the predatory nature of marketers for coaches that's out there is disgusting, frankly. There are a lot of people who have these programs for marketing that are thousands of dollars, and they're essentially capitalizing on the fact that as new and emerging coaches enter the market, they want to figure out how to make money. It's sometimes stressful going, oh gosh, what am I doing? Like, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing with marketing. And so there are a lot of people that are out there ready to sell you on some $5,000 mastermind where they say that they're going to solve every problem that you have in your coaching business, and they're full of it. And you're a new coach, and you're still figuring out your coaching style, and you're still figuring out who you want to coach maybe. Maybe you're thinking of switching niches, things like that. You don't know yet what you want for your brand. Or maybe you have some idea, but it's kind of like, what if this doesn't work? It's just my advice to new coaches is that you have to learn the skill of marketing. And if you learn the skill of marketing, then it's transferable to any changes you make in your business. And that is why we include marketing training as part of the Courageous Living Coach Certification. And the program that I offer for anybody, even if you're not in CLCC, to learn this skill of marketing is called the Coaching Blueprint. And you can find that at coachingblueprintprogram.com. So essentially my lens, and that's the lens I'll be coming from today, is that if you can learn marketing as a skill, especially when you are a new coach, and the Coaching Blueprint program is not $5,000. So spoiler alert, I'm not going to ask you to invest that much. And in fact, what I will tell you is that you can get a discount on the program. It is for a limited time, so I'm going to tell you how you can get a discount on the Coaching Blueprint program if you're interested in it. If you find that you're trying to use this discount code and it does not work, it means that the discount is no longer available. So that discount coupon code is podcast. PODCAST. You're a podcast listener. That is the discount code. So if it isn't working, it means that the promotion to have a discount has passed, because I don't know when you'll be listening to this. But nonetheless, it's really important to learn that skill of marketing, because if you know how to market yourself one way at the beginning of your coaching business, then you will be able to pivot that same skill in multiple directions. If you decide, I don't want to just do one-on-one coaching, I want to now do a group program. How do I market that? Or if you're saying to yourself, I thought I was going to be a creativity coach, and now I think I want to be a career coach. How am I going to shift that? Things like that. That's what you want to know. So coachingblueprintprogram.com. Now, let's get back to the topic at hand, though, which is how to be authentic in your marketing. So first of all, you are going to need to make a decision that you are going to do marketing in the way that feels aligned for you. Yes, do be mindful of the fact that stretching outside of your comfort zone could mean that initially you will go, this doesn't feel aligned for me, so that's why I'm not going to do it. And it might be that it actually is an aligned behavior for you, but it isn't yet something you feel comfortable doing yet. And so I do recommend that you get into some business coaching. I offer business coaching, actually, very, very limited. But if you go to teamclcc.com/business, or even better, get some business coaching from other coaches, maybe even people you went through training with. Just because they are not marketing experts does not mean that they can't identify when you have a limiting narrative about something that you maybe would do to market your business, but you're afraid to do, or need to do to market your business, but need to stretch outside your comfort zone. So really, really encouraging you to get some kind of feedback so that you know if something doesn't feel aligned for you because it truly is not for you, versus if it is something that could be for you and you don't think it's aligned because you're just uncomfortable and you're afraid. Get that feedback. But as a general rule, assuming that it is not something that is literally out of alignment for you, not the direction that you want to go in, really get connected to what feels good to you when you market yourself. What are the platforms that feel good to you? What feels good to you in terms of where you want to put your time and your attention? One of the reasons that I create these podcasts is because I like creating podcasts. I like taking ideas and researching them, organizing them, pulling them together into written outlines, or sometimes literally kind of writing out every example I want to give. It depends on the topic. And then coming here, hitting record, and publishing a podcast. I like to do it. It's one of the ways that I market what I do, but it's also something I enjoy doing. Something that I like to do, but not quite as much, is speaking gigs. So I've done speaking gigs. There's nothing wrong with doing speaking gigs, but it's not the first thing that I think of. It's not the thing that makes me go, ooh, that would be really fun. Whereas a podcast, I actually have that feeling of, oh, that'll be fun. I'm going to record a podcast today. So first thing is really make sure that you remember that you are creating your business in the way that works for you. And especially if you are letting go of a different career and moving into coaching, you are not letting go of one career path that did not light you up, only to go over to coaching and have that not light you up either. You deserve to have it light you up. So find the ways of marketing yourself that are actually fun, that are actually interesting, things like that. So use that as your true north. Now, to be authentic in marketing, especially in what is a business to client marketplace, you are a business marketing to get clients. You're offering services. Coaching is a service. A group coaching program even is a service. You want to do things through your marketing that are building trust, that are establishing you as someone who has expertise and capability to help people with problems that they face. And you're building relationships. So a couple of things that you can do to really make sure that you are authentic in your marketing. And I will talk as it applies about when this can be something that goes overboard, because there is the possibility of going overboard sometimes. But let's get started. So the first one is really making sure that you know what your values are. It's very coachy, isn't it? coachingblueprintprogram.com. It is all about values-based marketing. And your values need to be the engine behind your business. So if you know what your personal values are, consider, have I ever sat down and written out my values for my business? And then once you have actually done the values identification work, and you can do it in a very similar way as you might be carrying out values work with your own clients, consider that you want those reflected in your messaging. So you want to use language that speaks to your values. You want to give examples that speaks to those values. You want to model leadership. As an example of how I do this in my personal coaching practice, I will die on this hill. There is no such thing as fearless. My personal coaching business, separate from me being director of Team CLCC.com, my personal coaching business at yourcourageouslife.com is all about living your best life with courage. And there's a lot of stuff that's on the internet and in the personal growth space that's all about being fearless. Don't be fearless, or don't get it sucked into fear. Be courageous instead. Tell fear to F off, stuff like that. No, that is not courage. There's no one on the planet who's fearless, unless they're a sociopath or a psychopath and they are completely devoid of emotion. And I don't want to be in contact with those people. I don't think you do either. You're going to be afraid. You're always going to be afraid every time you nudge outside of your comfort zone. But you practice courage anyway. And over the years, I have talked about things from, for instance, my own personal life where I was afraid, but I was willing to nudge into that fear, dive into the experience of being afraid. So this isn't about shutting down emotions, but dive into the experience of being afraid and yet move my life forward, take action, have the uncomfortable conversation, whatever it might be, and essentially not letting fear be the thing that dictates what I'm going to do with my life. So, whatever your core values are, make sure that they're in your messaging. Make sure that you understand what it means to live that value. Make sure that you understand what it means to be slippery on that value. I think some of the best discussions of values that I've ever actually run across come from the organizational world and the work of Dr. Brené Brown and her book, Dare to Lead. When she talks about how you operationalize values and how you in an organization can say, these are my values, but if somebody, we've all heard of those businesses where they're going, courage is our value. And it's just like, how courageous are those teams? How courageous is leadership? You can't just say, this is my value. You have to operationalize it and say, these are the actions and the beliefs and the mindsets that I'm adopting when I'm honoring that value. And this is what it looks like when I'm getting slippery around that value. If you do the work of articulating for your coaching business what your core values are, and you operationalize them and you define what it looks like when things are slippery with those values, then it can go to your messaging. So, number one, understand and communicate what your values are. Second thing, sharing personal stories and experiences. This is something that when I referenced earlier, I'll tell you what it looks like when you go too far. I want to be real about what it looks like when you go too far, okay? So when you share your personal stories and experiences, you need to do that always from the lens of, how does this help my ideal client or my audience with problems that they face and solutions that they desire? That's really important, because what happens if somebody especially is a new coach and they're like, great, I'm going to share personal stories. And then you get an about page that's like 10 paragraphs of their life story. And it's one of the things I teach about in the Coaching Blueprint program. People do not actually visit an about page to learn your life story. They learn what about you is relevant to them. It's all very self-centered, and it's not in a bad way. It's understandable. Like, people, if they think they might need coaching as a service, they're looking at your about page and asking themselves, can I relate to this person? Do I feel like they get me? So they don't care if you were born in Detroit and you moved to Los Angeles and then you decided Los Angeles wasn't for you, so you moved to Kansas City. They don't care. They don't care where you went to school. They don't care. So what they're looking for, when you share a personal story, people don't care about the personal minutia of your life. People care, what about that story relates to something I'm struggling with, and how can I take inspiration from that story to see how to find my way through? Sometimes I have also seen online people who, maybe a coach tries to launch a program and it doesn't go as expected, and they're talking all about their disappointment and things like that. And that is totally fine to say, I felt really disappointed, it didn't go as expected. Here's what I'm doing now. Now that is modeling leadership. That is modeling cognitive reframing. That is modeling, I am not going to let a setback equal failure. That is fantastic to do. But if what you're doing is ranting, venting, complaining, whining, being really pessimistic, and then kind of leaving it as, sorry, everybody, that's all I got right now. It's real, it's authentic, but it's not going to help you in terms of business. So I want to make sure I'm really, really clear. I am not saying that you have to be a robot and every single difficulty that you ever go through has to have a shiny, sparkly, happy ending where everything is tied up neatly in a bow. I am not saying you have to pretend that you're never unhappy or that you're not unhappy if something difficult happens. I'm saying you have to strike a balance. I'm saying you have to understand that people are looking to you and to your content, and they want authenticity, but it can't be a Dear Diary entry. Nobody wants to read your Dear Diary entry. If you're going to share a personal story or experience, give it a narrative arc. First it was this, then I ran into this difficulty. Here are the things I tried that didn't work. I had a moment where I thought everything was going to get better, and then, yet another thing happened. And I rose to the challenge, and life might not be perfect. I might be a little banged up, but here's where I landed, or here's where I'm going next. So it's like a movie plot. That's what I just described. Third thing, engage personally with your audience. Engage personally. So if you're on social media, for instance, I've seen this stuff that's starting to appear on social media where it's like they give you like little responses that you can, in messages and stuff. I guess it hasn't been as much on social as it has been on, for instance, like in Gmail. When somebody sends you an email, Gmail will suggest that you say, sounds great, or LinkedIn. I've seen that as well, LinkedIn messaging, things like that. I really encourage you not to use that stuff. I would encourage you to really respond to people from a personal place. Don't just use generic, formulaic, sounds great, or good job, or so happy for you. Try to really find something that is personable. Maybe check out their profile, things of that nature. Just find ways to engage with people personally, because the reality is that there are a lot of bots on social media. And the bots are certainly not doing the work of trying to engage personally. The bots are just bot factories that are trying to garner likes and follows and things like that. And if you're going to be in the business of essentially getting trust, and I don't mean getting it in a nefarious way, but trust is part of the coaching relationship. If you're trying to establish yourself as an expert, then just kind of palling around and be like, thumbs up emoji. That's not very personal. You can do other things to give people a little bit more of the personal. You could do like a behind the scenes. You could host a Q&A. Live events, I believe, are available on every social media platform. You can talk about, my office is kind of a mess right now, things like that. Like, I don't think those things damage your credibility. So there are a lot of different ways that you can engage with people personally, but I think a good guideline would be if the way that you're talking to someone is so short and sweet that a bot could do it, it's probably not personal enough. Next tip. I would really encourage you to avoid any temptations to stoke controversy or use clickbait to try to get likes and views and engagement or a response from your audience. I think it backfires way too easily. And to you hearing that, you might go, oh, well, duh, I would never do that. I would never say something oddball, controversial just to get likes, views, whatever. But this is an actual strategy that I have seen marketers advocate. I have literally seen marketers say things like, you're always going to get more attention if people hate you than if they love you. So go ahead and say the weird thing. Say the thing that's really controversial. Say the thing that's going to stoke some ire from your audience, because then they're going to be commenting on what you say and it's going to give you more content and more views. And here's why I think that doesn't work. I think it doesn't work because you're not going to monetize that. You might say the controversial thing and yeah, your video might go viral, but who's going to buy something from you after you've said something really controversial that's just got everybody arguing in the comments? Is that the kind of environment that you want to create? Well, my goodness, I hope not, because we've got enough people arguing on the internet. Maybe that's the one thing we can all agree on, is that there are enough people arguing on the internet. So going down the route of trying to be sensationalist, trying to always be an outlier, poking at things, yeah, it is true that you might get attention, but not only will you likely bring some of the attention you don't want your way, but you also are not likely to monetize on that. Now, this does not mean that you always have to agree with what everyone says. I have not with any intention of just trying to stoke controversy. I have said things that are contrary to common narratives about the coaching industry or how coaches and clients interact with each other, things of that nature. So for instance, I had a post a couple of years ago that said a good coach, counselor, or therapist will piss you off just a little bit. And people, it was a discussion, and the point of the post, and I, was trying to really take care to bring proper context to why I was saying that, was that when clients are in a space of their comfort zone, when someone starts poking at your comfort zone, it's a pretty natural reaction to get a little pissed off. And nowhere do I see this more in myself when I am a client. That is quite the own. And with other people when I've coached them, when there is something that someone has been working really, really hard to shift for a long time, and they aren't quite there yet, but they've really been working at it, and the necessary work is to look at the little tiny things that are left over, the stones that they just don't quite want to unturn. So let's say a pattern like perfectionism. You're working really, really hard at perfectionism. You're 80% of the way there, but you're not 100% of the way shifting out of that pattern because there's this little 20% that you kind of don't want to look at. And then here comes this coach who's coming to you going, I need you to look at that. It pisses people off. And so that's why I said in that post, a good coach, counselor, or therapist might piss you off a little bit. And they're not trying to. It's just that you're getting triggered because somebody's poking at this little thing that is frankly the linchpin holding the whole pattern in place. And I've had that experience with my own coach where he's coaching me and I'm annoyed with him for the things that he's saying because I've already worked so hard and I'm already cognitively aware of the thing I want to change. And then here he is poking at this last little bit. It's annoying. People get annoyed. I wasn't trying to be sensationalist with that post. I was trying to say that clients should not always expect that they are always 100% happy, glittery, sparkling, with the coaching process or with how they view their coach. And there were some people who came in and said, well, if your coach or whoever is pissing you off a bit, then this is an indication that there's a lack of trust in the relationship. And I actually agree with that that could be a possibility. I don't think it's always true, but I think it could be a possibility. So whenever you are giving people these points of view that are a little bit different, just make sure that you're not being sensationalist, that you're being authentic in a way that includes room for people to disagree. You're not taking a stand and trying to have an argument. You're just trying to say, here's where maybe I differ a little bit from the conventional way of thinking about things. There's room for other people to respectfully disagree. You're not just clickbaiting. You're not just trolling for, the sake of trolling. So you're really looking at how do you show up as you in a way that is aligned, and you do that by saying, okay, I'm really clear on what feels aligned for me when I'm marketing. You're getting some kind of feedback, or you have some way of checking yourself just in case what you call I'm not aligned is actually just your fear and your discomfort. You're doing the work to understand and communicate what your core values are. So you know what your values are, you've operationalized them, and those values are showing up in your messaging. Those values are showing up in how you model your way of being for others when you show up online or when you have conversations. When you share any kind of personal stories, it's not a Dear Diary entry. It's you sharing some kind of a narrative arc. It's you sharing in such a way that you're tying it back to the problems people face and the solutions they desire. You're getting engaged with your clients, and you're doing so from a personal place. Again, a good guideline would be if your response to somebody's comment could sound like a bot, then it's no, you need to go a little bit further. And then really making sure that you're authentic enough to talk about the things where maybe you differ from what it is that the rest of the coaching industry is saying, or how you like to coach, or things like that. You're allowing yourself to be different in the ways that are important to be different for you, that are aligned for you, but you're not doing so to the point where you're complaining, venting, using clickbaity, I'm just trying to get everybody all stirred up purely for the likes and the views. And when you pull all of these different pieces together, that's how you step into crafting a brand that is authentic and aligned, that actually really feels like you and feels good to show up for each and every single day. And that is how you're actually going to attract clients to you who get who you are and what you're about, resonate with your brand because they resonate with your core values, which are throughout your messaging. They resonate with your expertise, which is shared through your personal stories. They resonate with your perspective and the fact that you're willing to engage. That is actually what brings the best clients to you. All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, would you help us out and take a moment to give us a rating in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the word out to other listeners. And before you go today, would you like free resources to support your coaching journey? Whether you're considering becoming a coach or you want advanced coach skills training, access our coaching resource library at teamclcc.com. Again, that's teamclcc.com. Can't wait to connect with you. And again, thanks for listening.